All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Leisrealtalk. Well, another week is here. I hope everyone has had a great start of the week. Good so far? Okay. All right. Well, let's get to the bottom of some of the burning questions we have. Who controls the world's largest communist regime is arguably the most important question in geopolitics. Xi Jinping's grip on power, and especially his control over the military, has been the subject of intense speculation. The central question is, what's Xi Jinping's true relationship with his vice chairman, Zhang Youxia? Which one of the two actually controls the PLA? Hopefully, we'll come to a conclusion by the end of this program together. Okay, so stay with me. Actually, this question has dominated attention for more than a year. I have done many programs on that. But today, I'll share with you some of the latest development. Now, in the past year, every PLA editorial, every appearance or absence of Xi Jinping at military events, every time Xi and Zhang appear together in state media has been painstakingly studied, yet the conclusions remain divided. Okay, I just want to make sure my audio, I didn't check audio. Do I sound okay? Yeah, audio is good? All good? Okay, no complaint about the audio? Yeah, looks like I'm on. Good, excellent. I haven't seen a response from people. If there's a delay, that's okay. Audio is fine. Okay, well, thank you, D-Glass. Thank you, Janet. Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you, John. All right, okay. Sometimes there's like, I just all of a sudden forgot that I double-checked the audio. So like I said, yeah, despite all the efforts to study every appearance or absence, the conclusions are divided, views are divided. One camp believes Xi Jinping has already lost control of the military to Zhang Youxia. Their case rests on the downfall or disappearance of Xi's most trusted generals. Who are they? Well, the four famous ones. Admiral Miao Hua, head of the political work department, Vice Chairman He Weidong, who oversees Taiwan operations and is now missing, former Vice Chairman Xu Qiliang, who has died, and then Zhong Shaojun, Xi Jinping's longtime executive assistant in the Central Military Commission. He has been demoted. Now, these were Xi Jinping's most loyal lieutenants. Their successive downfall or demise in just 12 months, in this view, points to abnormal power dynamics within the military. The other camp insists Xi Jinping is still firmly in charge. They argue it is precisely Xi Jinping's insecurity and paranoia that drove him to purge even his closest allies, cutting down generals who once formed his inner circle. Their reasoning: Xi Jinping still meets foreign dignitaries and he continues to dominate state media coverage. So for months, both sides looked to the September 3rd military parade as a weather vane, hoping it would reveal the balance of power between the two. Now that the parade has come and gone, the debate has only intensified. Both sides see evidence supporting their claims. But what complicates the picture is that both Xi Jinping's faction and the anti-Xi camp have flooded the rumor mills. The truth is blurred and concealed ever more than before. So today, let me walk you through the arguments from both camps so you can decide for yourself what's really happening inside the Chinese military. So let me start with those who believe Xi Jinping is still in power. All right, so for them, the strongest evidence is symbolic but powerful. This image. Xi Jinping's presence on the Tiananmen rostrum with Putin and Kim Jong-un, followed by his solo review of the troops. That image is the strongest evidence. In the weeks before, speculation had been rampant, claims that PLA generals were refusing to march, that Xi Jinping would not be allowed to inspect the troops, even that Zhang Youxia might replace him. They were everywhere. In the end, none of that happened. Xi Jinping appeared in full command, inspecting the army as commander-in-chief. So to this camp, that was proof enough that his authority remains unchallenged. The second piece of evidence is what happened on August 26, 2025, when the Chinese military held what it called the All-Army Academic Symposium to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the victory of the war against Japan. That symposium was held in Beijing. What caught observers' attention is that Zhang Youxia not only attended, but also in his speech explicitly cited Xi Jinping Thought. Now, prior to that point, we hadn't heard Zhang Youxia mentioning Xi Jinping Thought for a year. So at this event, he declared the need to, quote, thoroughly study and implement Chairman Xi's important instructions, to genuinely learn, truly understand, firmly believe, and fully apply Xi Jinping Thought. Okay, so this was the first time in a year that Zhang had publicly mentioned Xi Jinping Thought. So for those who believe that Xi Jinping is still in power, this was a strong signal that Zhang Youxia had yielded ground to Xi. But for those who do not believe this, they think his comments were almost satirical or comical, because it just doesn't make sense. I mean, he said to thoroughly study and implement Chairman Xi's important instructions, so as to genuinely learn, truly understand, firmly believe, and fully apply them. I mean, that's just, it looks a little funny to some people. They think it was intentional. But anyways, everyone take what they need from these cues. So for those who believe Xi Jinping is in power, they think this is a strong signal that Zhang Youxia had yielded ground. Their third argument rests on photos and videos of Xi Jinping's younger brother, Xi Jinping, hosting a banquet for the CCP princelings' families. I have a picture here. Yeah, maybe make this bigger, but you still can see. You can't see faces. Okay, but here in the image, Xi Jinping stands at the center. He is tall. He is like he's 1 meter, 190 centimeters. So he's what, 5'11", almost 6 feet. No, 5'11", 5'12". I don't know. Yeah, but he's tall. So he's the one in that white shirt in the center. So here he is hosting a banquet for the CCP red aristocracy at a Beijing hotel after the parade. In the images or the videos, people could tell that in attendance were like Mao Zedong's daughter, Li Na, and then Zhou Enlai's niece and the son of founding Marshal Chen Yi. So for Xi Jinping's supporters, these images and videos prove that Beijing's political elite have rallied around Xi Jinping and his family in exchange for his promise to safeguard their privileges and wealth. Okay, their fourth argument focuses on the conspicuous absence of Hu Jintao from the parade. And until now, Hu Jintao had never missed a military parade under Xi's rule. So this camp says his absence proves that the reformist faction has been completely sidelined, especially after Beidaihe. According to their account, Xi Jinping admitted to policy mistakes at the summer retreat, but struck a deal. He would step back or step down in 3 years at the 21st Party Congress. In reality, though, his plan is to install a puppet successor and continue ruling from behind the scenes after 2027. Now, the man advancing this claim is Mr. Du Wen, who is the former legal counsel to Hu Chunhua, Hu Jintao's protege, right? Hu Jintao's chosen successor to Xi Jinping. Now living in Europe, Mr. Du has sworn by the authenticity of his information, even pledging that if it proves false, he will quit his career as a YouTuber for good. Now, when someone takes their entire reputation on a claim, it's hard to dismiss it outright. So Mr. Du's claims immediately sparked debate, especially among those who argue Xi Jinping is no longer in full control. So let's now switch to the other side and walk through their arguments. Okay, so their argument number one is about Hu Jintao's absence. They say that the fact that Hu Jintao didn't attend the parade isn't proof that his influence has faded. It could just as easily be Hu Jintao's outright refusal to participate in Xi Jinping's event. This camp says Hu simply didn't want to be seen alongside Putin and Kim Jong-un. They argue Hu's influence is actually growing, not shrinking, judging by the high-profile activities of his protege, Hu Chunhua. I have a picture. Yeah. Hu Chunhua and his son, Hu Haifeng, these two, often called the junior Hus, are exactly the people Xi Jinping has tried hardest to suppress. Remember, just a week before the parade, Hu Chunhua showed up at unusually prominent events in Tibet and then in Jilin, in Changchun, Jilin, receiving treatment usually reserved for the party's top leader. I covered that in a program last week. And also, Xinhua and People's Daily even showered him with poetic praise, calling his presence spring blossoms and autumn fruits, in Chinese, 春华秋实. And meanwhile, Hu Haifeng, the son, who is just the deputy minister in the Ministry of, I think it's called Social Services, suddenly appeared at a high-profile financial forum in Shanghai and was even spotted in that large delegation that accompanied Xi Jinping to Tibet. The press didn't cover his presence, but in pictures that people leaked online, he was there. He was in the delegation. So he went. Now, his job doesn't require him to go to Tibet. So why did they send the two junior Hus there, right? So the fact that both men have been so active recently, this camp argues, shows Hu Jintao's influence is very much alive and well. Okay, and their second argument is that they address the Xi Jinping banquet photo. Where did it go? I mean, let's go back to the photo. Here we go. They say that none of the heavyweight princelings were there. Not General Liu Yuan, son of Liu Shaoqi, right? Not Deng Pufang or Deng Rong, son and daughter of Deng Xiaoping. Not Chen Yuan or his, the son and then the granddaughter of Chen Yun were not there, and not the children of Hu Yaobang. All of these above-mentioned names are well-known princeling heavyweights whose political power are tremendous, but they were all absent from this event. And so so people may say, well, it's probably because they're not active. Maybe they had a conflict or they're just inactive. No, it's not. On the contrary, they all attended the memorial conference for Chen Yun in June. So this suggests Xi Jinping's gathering was limited to Maoist era loyalists. They were the princelings. They were the Maoist faction princelings. And none of the politically powerful princelings showed up. So using this photo as proof that Xi Jinping is in control was, in their view, awkward and humiliating. What was supposed to be a grand reunion of the red aristocracy ended up as a gathering of people with no real political weight. Okay, and their point number 3 is about the parade marshal. Now, if Xi Jinping were truly in full control of the military, he wouldn't have waited until the last minute to announce the parade marshal. Nor would he have chosen a lieutenant general. Normally, that honor would always go to a full general, such as the commander of a Central Theater Command, or the Central Theater Command, or even defense minister, right? Defense Minister Dong Jun was not even spotted at the parade. So why didn't that happen? Even if Xi Jinping personally favored Lieutenant General Han Shengyan, the parade marshal. Where did he go? Oh, here's Hu Chunhua in Jilin, accompanied. Oh, here's Dong Jun, the defense minister, who was not spotted at the military parade. It's very odd. And here's the parade marshal. His name is Han Shengyan, who's a lieutenant general. So let's say Xi Jinping just really likes him and wants to name him the parade marshal. He could have promoted him to full general before the parade to keep protocol intact. If the choice had really been his. The fact that the marshal was not a top-tier officer suggests Xi Jinping is not the one calling the shots. And this, they argue, was Zhang Youxia's way of signaling that Xi is no longer the true chief commander. Because, when the one inspecting the troop isn't really the true chief commander, they lower the rank. They lower the rank of the parade marshal. All right, so that's their argument number 3. Now, the fourth argument, you've already heard, Zhang Youxia's elevated status, right? And another sign, they say, is Zhang Youxia's seating arrangement. He was placed alongside current and former members of the Politburo Standing Committee, treated as if he were one himself. This shows his political standing has risen. And in this view, Xi Jinping reviewed the troops not because he holds power, but because the opposition allowed him to. Both sides struck a temporary truce to project unity and prevent the regime from collapsing. Now, for this camp, their strongest argument is that in terms, they say that you have to look at the bigger picture. The strongest argument rests on the military purges and reemergence. Now, the massive downfall of Xi Jinping's loyalists in the military over the past year is problematic. Beyond the 4 generals I mentioned earlier, the overwhelming majority of those purged have been Xi Jinping's people. This cannot be Xi Jinping's own doing, they say. As suspicious as Xi Jinping is, he isn't crazy enough to wipe out so many of his own people while still dreaming of taking Taiwan by force. Meanwhile, Zhang Youxia has emerged untouched by the purges. Isn't that odd? At the same time, former military leaders once sidelined by Xi have reappeared. At this year's PLA anniversary reception, here we go. 3 generals once targeted by Xi were seated at a main table, right? Liu Yuan, the heavyweight princeling, you're familiar with his name, whose talent and intellect intimidate Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping feared General Liu Yuan because he knows General Liu is more capable and more talented than he is. So he pushed him aside. And then there's another guy, Wang Guanzhong, who was Hu Jintao's former executive assistant in the CMC's general office. And then there's a Cai Yingting, former deputy chief of the PLA's general staff, who was demoted 8 ranks by Xi Jinping after Xi Jinping found out his daughter married a Frenchman. Anyways, so these 3 prominent PLA retired prominent generals, their re-emergence spoke volume. So now think about it. Xi Jinping's most trusted generals keep disappearing, while his adversaries keep resurfacing at high-profile events. So to this camp, that's the strongest evidence that Xi Jinping's influence is fading. Now, there are more arguments, but those are the main ones from both sides. So what do you think? Which case sounds more convincing to you? Let's do a vote. So let's do a vote. Chris, I forgot to give you this vote. Can you post a survey? So the question is, who controls the Chinese PLA? Vote 1 if you think it's Xi Jinping. Vote 2 if it's Zhang Youxia, and 3 if it's not sure. Okay, let's find out. Now, while you decide, I want to explain why the question, who controls the PLA, matters so much. And this is important. If Xi Jinping commands the army, it means his power is unchallenged politically. And China is locked on a Maoist trajectory, more isolated internationally, bound tighter to Russia in the Ukraine war, as well as to North Korea and Iran, and with an increased risk of conflict in the Taiwan Strait. She might even start a war to mask the domestic economic crisis, to reclaim absolute authority. If, however, Zhang Youxia has the upper hand, he's likely working with reform-minded party elders, steering China back to a more open path, reminiscent of Deng Xiaoping's reform era. They are less likely to start a war, since Zhang Youxia, having long overseen PLA's equipment department, knows the army isn't ready. Still, both futures remain within the framework of CCP rule. The difference is that the Zhang/reformist faction may have a greater chance of eventually abandoning the regime altogether. But here's the $1 million question, or perhaps the $1 trillion question. Does that mean the West should prefer Zhang Youxia's camp over Xi Jinping? My answer is not necessarily. Some analysts argue that Xi Jinping's iron grip may actually be the lesser evil for the outside world, as long as both camps keep the CCP in power. Their reasoning is simple. With Xi Jinping at the helm, his hardline destructive course could destabilize the regime from within. China's economy could collapse entirely, forcing state-run canteens, rationing. We will see empty shelves, more bankruptcies, more closures, business closing. So in this scenario, the suffering would stay inside China's borders so long as no war breaks out. But if China returns to Deng Xiaoping-style reforms, the CCP survives as a communist state and still hungry for Western capital and technology. That will keep the party alive and push the cost outward. And think about it, the suffering and the casualties will eventually be borne by the West over time. So from this perspective, some argue that letting Xi Jinping drive the CCP into crisis may be more cost-effective for the outside world. I don't know how you feel. I don't necessarily agree because too many people would suffer and the chances and the risk of war is much higher. And if war does break out, too many lives will be lost. But the point here is this. The debate over Xi Jinping versus Zhang Youxia is not the same as choosing which faction we should prefer. As long as neither side abandons the communist system, there isn't much difference. And then there's also a third possibility. That is, Xi Jinping himself could decide to end the regime. He could blame everything on the CCP and then step down. And if he chose that path, it would be, in my opinion, his safest exit, aligning with the people and the opposition to denounce the party. But whether he has the vision or courage is another matter. But if he doesn't, and the opposition ends the regime instead, then he goes down with it, right? He could even end up behind bars. So now there are other interesting claims that are worth mentioning. One I thought is very interesting is that during the parade, at the Tiananmen Square, the Tiananmen Gate, Putin reportedly met with Zhang Youxia and party elders, telling them not to challenge Xi Jinping's authority. It is said that Xi Jinping himself arranged that meeting. Now, I cannot verify that, but I heard it. I thought it's quite interesting. So I want to share that with you. Another leak suggests party elders mediated directly between Xi Jinping and Zhang Youxia, fearing that their conflict might derail the parade altogether. And they said that if this didn't happen, the parade would be ugly. So what happened was Zhang Youxia sent Liu Yuan to negotiate on his behalf. And the person who disclosed this is dissident and writer Mr. Wu Zuolai. Yeah, he's the one who disclosed this. So here's what happened. So Zhang Youxia sent Liu Yuan to negotiate on his behalf. And the outcome was considered satisfactory. And so what is the outcome? It is that after more than a year of fighting between Xi Jinping and Zhang Youxia, Zhang hasn't lost, and Xi hasn't really won either. So yeah, no one lost and no one won. That's what it is right now. And here are the 5 conditions Liu Yuan laid down. Number 1, Xi Jinping's trip to Tibet had to be supervised by CMC discipline chief Zhang Shiming, with a photo op alongside the Tibet garrison. Previously, Xi Jinping had not been seen with the local troops when he traveled locally. He's missed because before this power struggles got ugly, Xi Jinping always visited local troops whenever he travels out of Beijing to other provinces. He likes to visit the PLA. Now, he stopped doing that in 2025. So because the ones who control the PLA didn't let him. So now this time they said that, okay, we'll let you do a photo op with the Tibet garrison, but but you have to go with the CMC's discipline chief, Zhang Shiming. That's condition number one. Condition number two, the military would allow Xi Jinping to review the troops and keep the Xi as the core propaganda line. You know, Xi Jinping is called the core, 核心, Xi 核心, Xi the core. So they will agree to keep that propaganda line, but the parade commander must be chosen by the military. Number three, Zhang Youxia had to be positioned on par with state-level leaders during the parade, showcasing his rank. And that's exactly what we saw. Number four, Xi Jinping could not arbitrarily interfere in military affairs or parachute in his cronies. The PLA's operational independence had to be respected. And the fifth condition was the August 1, the annual anniversary celebration or reception, whatever you call that, banquet, to celebrate the August 1st PLA Day will be run entirely by the military. And they want to give sideline generals, including Liu Yuan himself, a chance to reemerge. So again, that's what we heard from one source. I cannot verify that, but it appears all five conditions were met. All right, so let's summarize. So who controls China's military? The world's largest standing army, right? It could be debated. On one side, some argue Xi Jinping is still firmly in charge. They point to his high-profile parade appearance with Putin and Kim Jong-un, his solo review of the troops, and the fact that Xinhua and People's Daily continue to put his name above Zhang Youxia's in coverage, and he's still being referred to as the core. They also highlight Zhang's public praise of Xi Jinping Thought and photos of elite red aristocracy families rallying around Xi Jinping's brother. But others insist Xi is losing his grip. They point to the high-profile reemergence of two officials that Xi Jinping has tried the hardest to suppress, the two junior Hu Chunhua and Hu Haifeng. And without Zhang Youxia and PLA's backing, those two would never have resurfaced under any circumstances. And they also mentioned the reinstallment or the reemergence of sideline generals at the anniversary banquet. They also mentioned Zhang Youxia's elevated status at the parade and the unusual choice of a mere lieutenant general as parade marshal, combined with the disappearance of Xi Jinping's loyalists, while Zhang Youxia's allies remain untouched. That's how they built their case for Xi Jinping's weakened grip over the PLA. So if you really look at, I mean, the two sides, the Xi side leans on official optics, right? Such as appearance, media reports, or media hierarchy. But the Zhang Youxia side leans on personnel survival patterns, like who gets purged versus who resurfaces. So their emphasis and angles are different. So both camps have compelling evidence, but the truth is murky. So leaving the question wide open, who really commands the PLA? Let me take a look at the survey results. Has people voted yet? Has that survey been posted? Can someone tell me the survey results? All right. Okay. Well, while I wait, can someone give me the survey results? All right. Let me first acknowledge the super stickers. Okay. Well, good evening. Good evening. Oh, here's one. Gay UFOs. Well, thank you. That's from Canada. All right. Wes Downer. Thank you, Wes. Okay. Hopefully, by the time I scroll down to the bottom, we'll have the survey results. 1, if you think Xi Jinping is in control. 2, if you think Zhang Youxia is. 3 is you're not sure. Well, I see a lot of 2s, some 3s, not a lot of 1s. Wow, a lot of 2s. Wow. 2, 2, 2s, a lot of 2s. 3, 3, some 3s. Okay. Good, good. All right. Gay UFO. Well, thank you again. Okay. 2. Wow. Not, I think, yeah. So Xi 10%, Zhang Youxia 51%, the rest is not sure. Wow. Okay. 11%, 51%, not sure, 38%. Okay. So the majority, because it's over 50%, 51% think Zhang Youxia is in control. That's very interesting. Putin, someone said Putin controls. Putin controls Xi Jinping, the PLA. All right. Okay. Yeah. I'm just giving you the. I'm just giving you everything that I've seen from both sides and let you decide. I think collectively we think Zhang Youxia is controlling the PLA. But I'm telling you, there are people who, um, the people who tend to believe that Xi Jinping, I'm telling you the difference between who believes Xi Jinping is in control versus Zhang Youxia. The ones who are professionals, like who used to be professional or who used to be journalists or political commentators or even government officials, people who have a professional track record in politics, tend to be very careful in claiming that Xi Jinping is not in control. I noticed that. Yeah. And yet individuals like myself who don't have a career in politics or journalism tend to accept the fact that Zhang Youxia is controlling the PLA. And that division is very interesting. So you have so in this Chinese social media landscape outside China, so some of the heavyweights, some of the opinion leaders, KOLs, they believe that Xi Jinping is still firmly in control, and these people have connections with Beijing insiders. Of course, the people who are in the other camp also have their connections, so they both get their information or tips from inside China. But it's very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So EJ Belge. Lei, considering you are a harsh critic of the CCP, are you not afraid what it will do to you? Or it could be that you know someone in high places in the org that is anti-Xi? Just curious. I do not have any ties. I do not know anyone in high places. No one ever fed any tips to me. I do not have any connections to the Chinese government. So so that's number one. I don't want to risk the well-beings of my friends inside China. So that one, on that note, I feel good. Yeah. So everything that I relate to you is already public information. Yeah. So, well, but thank you for the concern. Here's a question from Keys Cook. My long-term view is that Trump's voicing as Xi is a good friend has saved Xi's standing in the CCP. What do you say on this? You have to judge by Trump. You have to judge Trump by what he does, not by what he says. Sometimes he says the opposite things to distract the opponents. I think the Trump administration needs time. I think they are planning to decouple with China, but they need time. They need to get prepared. So I think he's throwing out these lines. I think this administration is less concerned with the right soundbites than the previous administration, because he's not a career politician. He doesn't care about saying the right thing. He says what he thinks is the right for the opponents. So I think he's saying that just to put on a facade. I think to buy himself some time, because the United States is not ready to completely decouple with China at the moment. We need time. So yeah, judge him by what he does, not by what he says. Seek the truth. Trump will lower the hammer. Putin hit his economy with killing sanctions, no ties, Ukraine support. The secondary tariffs will kill the Chinese economy. Seriously, that's serious. And I don't know, did you see the report that China secretly sent its trade representative Li Chenggang to the United States to seek dialogue? And this is not at the invitation of the U.S. trade officials. The Chinese wanted to come to Washington, but he only met with his counterpart. I mean, not his counterpart. He didn't meet with Secretary of Commerce or the Secretary of Finance, Scott Bessent, nor did he talk to the trade representative. He only talked to their deputies. So, but it was the Chinese wanted to come, trying to get a feel of what the Americans wanted in the long term. But I don't think he got anything. So the Chinese is really concerned with the secondary sanctions. Antian, what do you think of Chinese Canadian influencer Lauren Chen, who recently came back from social media purgatory due to accusation of being under foreign influence? Lauren Chen, is there a Chinese name? I mean, she was kicked out by the CCP by the Chinese social media. I think it's for Chinese Americans or Chinese Canadians who are influential in China. I think it's not safe unless you pledge allegiance to the CCP, unless you become a diehard CCP loyalist and supporter. Otherwise, it's very difficult for them to thrive in that environment now. Why do they stay there? It's very difficult. So get out while you still can. Okay, Norbert Claus asked me a good question. How did you find out that the victory over Japan was not a CCP win, but it was done by the Taiwanese Chinese? What was your reaction? Oh, it was very late. I think it was about 20 years ago, maybe less than that. There was a TV program produced by Newtown Dynasty Television, the sister media of the Epoch Times. And there was a scholar, his name is Xinghao Nian. He is a historian, and he specializes in the Civil War era. And so he did a program on NTD TV talking about that history. And it was shocking. Yeah. That program is very popular in the overseas Chinese community. So that was the first time that I heard this piece of history. So it was only about 18 years ago. It's not long ago. Yeah, that just tells. And Newtown Dynasty TV is based in New York. Yeah, based in New York. And speaking of, I think they were trying to get themselves onto like a cable network like Comcast, but Comcast refused them, turned them down. You know, Comcast allowed all the CCP propaganda networks to be on its network, but refused a Chinese American TV network that's headquartered in New York. And the reason, I mean, they wouldn't give you the reason, but if you really ask them, it's because CCP is behind them. It's because CCP is telling them no. And the reason the CCP doesn't like the Epoch Times and the NTD TV is because of Falun Gong, because these are media outlets started by Falun Gong practitioners. So, and then when you really think about it, you're like, why would the business between two American companies in American market, you know, in America, be subject to the opinion of a foreign communist government in America? They're not talking about global broadcast, right, to the Chinese. They're just talking about Comcast broadcast, Comcast in the United States, or even regional, right, in like the Northeast. Why would the Comcast programming be subject to the opinion of a foreign government? And it's very sad. If they have allowed TV networks like NTD to be on their roster program, you know, then more Chinese Americans would find out the truth about that piece of history. So it's very sad. And that's just one example. That's just one example of many similar cases. So speaking of CCP's influence in the US, it's tremendous. It's beyond your comprehension. Let's put it that way. Lee Shepard, what are some cultural differences you would like to see Chinese American citizens to adopt from one another? Okay, well, to me, it's very straightforward. Chinese need to learn from the Americans about honesty. The Chinese are too, I mean, I can't really blame them. I mean, Confucius taught us to be honest, but the communists has screwed up everything, you know, and so people are afraid to be honest. Honest people are being punished in China. So, but Americans are honest. So I think the Chinese need to learn honesty from Americans, and the Americans need to learn from the Chinese, not the communists, not the Chinese in today's China. Maybe hardworking, like endurance. Americans, yeah, maybe the country is too wealthy, and then people have become too comfortable. Most Chinese work like 6 days a week. Yeah, most Chinese, even Chinese Americans who are wealthy, they work very hard. I think by comparison, Americans tend to enjoy life more. So that's the first thing that I think they can learn from each other. Yeah. But thank you for the great question. I love that. Okay. All right. Let's see. Wes Donner, thank you. Is Christianity still thriving in China? Well, not really, because the state church is called the Patriotic Church in China is state-owned or state-controlled. The clergy are government officials. They take salary from the government. And then the underground church, the home churches are being persecuted. And actually, someone just said that, I don't know if this is verified or not, but I just heard today that Xi Jinping has issued an order for the next phase of his rule. They are going to persecute the underground Christians. They are going to increase their persecution of the Falun Gong. And also the third group is intellectuals, because these three groups pose big threat to the regime. I mean, for underground Christians, Xi Jinping never liked. Hello, what happened? My image froze. Hello? I don't know what happened to my image. But to answer that question, yeah, so it's there's a new directive coming out of Zhongnanhai to focus on, to target the underground Christians, the Falun Gong, and then liberal-minded intellectuals. So these people will be persecuted. Well, I think I'm going to end it here because I don't know what happened to my screen. It froze. So I thank you very much for joining me, and I thank Paul Lovecheck for your super sticker. And that's all for tonight. Thank you.